Welcome to the Shadow the Script podcast. I'm your host, Jared May, and it's another edition of just me here solo for season 3. Hey, I had a ton of fun doing some of the guest interviews, and I'm looking forward to doing some more. And I'm going to have to work my own connections into finding maybe some athletes and some interesting guests to maybe just have these unscripted stories. And I really enjoyed getting to know. I mean, I kind of knew everybody, obviously, that I've already done, but just being behind the mic and doing that kind of thing, it's a different atmosphere, and it seemed to be entertaining for all four of them that joined the show. So, and I really did have a lot of fun, specifically with the episode with my mom about talking about legacy, and I probably could have gone a lot longer. We had some other things that we had to do. I wanted to have dinner with my mom, so we kind of cut it short, but. A lot of people were texting me and close friends and some other people in the DMs are saying, we kind of want like a part 2. We want something that's a little longer. Like, they were interested in the story. And to be honest, I'm still working on my quote unquote interviewing skills. That's something that is new to me. I'm used to just kind of babbling all by myself and having the medical guy and the analyst on here to talk, Cowboys football or NFL or collegiate football. So, it's a new space for me, and it's a new space, obviously, for the guest who've never been asked to be on a podcast before. So, man, extremely grateful for that. I'm extremely grateful for, even though it's not a ton of people, but the few of you guys that have reached out and said that you really enjoyed it, that you said you want to hear more, and I'll continue to do so. And I'm going to continue to pray that this is something that I should be continuing doing, or if I need to focus on other things. Obviously, it's challenging I'm not here to just be famous. It's just a hobby for now. But it would be cool if I had a platform that reached out to a lot of people where I could shadow the script on, NFL and collegiate relevant topics in sports, to have a faith foundational section of the network that attacks really fun topics that allows people to ask questions about their faith and have it answered with guests or with myself or with whoever. And if it helps somebody, then it helps somebody. But then maybe, of course, the third one with the Stats and Stars crew, maybe specifically focusing on, the Dallas Cowboys and college football like we've done in the past. And I think all three of those are absolutely a possibility to kind of format the identity of the podcast long term. But what we got rolling right now, I'm happy with, and I've enjoyed it. And yes, it is all by myself. It's a lot of work, especially on top of the work that I already do as a profession, which is starting to ramp up. Thank God. So anyway, today I wanted to come on here. I'm going on vacation next week. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to the Israel or Ukraine or LA. I'm going to the Frio River with the fam. So I wanted to get an episode out, and just keep in mind next week, the week of the June teens months or whatever. We're probably going to be doing a Stats and Scars episode focusing on the Dallas Cowboys OTAs. Now, this is going to consist of our thoughts on Shoddy, Brian Schottenheimer. It's going to consist of, the new looks around the team, the new players, George Pickens coming in with CeeDee Lamb, the running back rotation, what to expect from Jake Ferguson at tight end, looking at the defensive, all of it, looking at the cornerback room. Jair Alexander was released. You're going to go into kind of just into depth because we haven't done that in a while. And praise God that their kids are healthy and they're fathers now. So we've been trying to, with nothing to talk about, there was no point in doing any episodes and allowing them to be good fathers for a hobby. It was a priority of mine, but they're excited to come back, and I'm excited to talk ball and talk shop with those fellas. It's always a blast. We've kept the group chat running too in that. So don't disregard that. That's something that has never stopped. We're still talking ball. We're still exchanging text. We're family. So it's just we haven't run an episode in a while. And I'm excited for a new one. But on here, I wanted to come on here before next week's vacation. And there's been a couple of topics that, I mean, you can argue relevant, you can argue big, you can argue whatever you want. But it's starting to become that time where, well, ESPN's a damn lunch table. They ask you one specific topic and it just fluctuates into this big argument with 7 screens and then one host that sits there like this. If you're watching, you saw the face. They just kind of stand there with cleavage and, say nothing. And these random former athletes come on there and it's like, does Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's pregame fit impact the culture at Oklahoma City Thunder? And then it's just like this big ass argument. Like, it's similar to like ranking the hottest celebrities at the lunch table. Is basically, it's like, I got Sydney Sweeney at my 1, and then somebody from the other side of the table screams, how can you not put Anna de Armas at number 1? How can you not put Margot Robbie in front of Sydney Sweeney? And it's just like this huge argument for nothing, just for shits and gigs, essentially. And that, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of fun, but ESPN, they're just like trying to find topics and they can't do it. And First Take needs to first think before they first take. But on here, the top 10 quarterback rankings are starting to come out. There's for different, analysts. Chris Sims came out with one. It was diabolical, and that's kind of the inspiration of me creating my own because, and you'll see the graphic come up here in a little bit. We're going to dive on into it. I'm also going to do my top 5 SEC. I can't really go into top 10 SEC because it's a little too, I'm not an expert on the camp notes in college football. This is just based on my own off the dome knowledge, essentially. But Josh Pate and Joel Klatt, those guys are super fun to listen to when talking about college athletics, college quarterbacks. But my top 10-ish NFL list will be coming up here shortly. But I want to ramp up some topics before we get into all that. The Shemar Stewart, Texas A&M rookie Shemar Stewart for the Cincinnati Bengals is going through some contract disputes. I want to start with that first. Now, this is a hometown kid. Yes, Texas A&M Aggie. Shemar Stewart was a defensive end edge rusher for the Texas A&M Aggies this past year. I think he's been there for 2 or 3 years. Drafted first round of the Cincinnati Bengals. And look, there's been a dispute. You might have seen this. You might have not. But if you're unaware, essentially, Shemar Stewart is not participating in OTAs. Nor will he participate in training camp due to contract disputes. So he is not getting his guaranteed money on the first round contract. So in the first round, you get paid a certain amount of money. You usually get paid more guaranteed money, a higher salary than your second, third, and so forth. In the past, your Jamar Chases, your other first-round draft picks for the Cincinnati Bengals that I don't know off the top of my head. These guys had guaranteed money contracts that were given to them because you're paying them based upon their draft position. Now, whether I agree with that or not, there's an earn factor in there. I think playing at such an elite level in college and earning that first-round draft pick selection is good enough to earn some guaranteed money, especially knowing that it's not going to surpass market price. It's just not a big deal. If you drafted a guy in the first round, you're expecting him to be first round talent. Jamar Chase ended up that way. I can't remember if T. Higgins was a second round pick or a first round pick, but he's got his money. I think they got some other, it was a corner or some defensive back. He got his guaranteed money contract incentives. With Shemar Stewart, they're just all of a sudden not doing that. And there's 2 different sides of the coin here, and I'm getting into it. Trey Hendrickson, the number, I think 94 number. He is or 91, I think. But he is a pretty damn good edge rusher, and they're having contract negotiations and disputes with him as well, and it probably pertains to guaranteed money. So they've got some problems contractually at the edge position in Cincinnati. And if you guys remember the 2024 season, you watched the Cincinnati Bengals and you thought to yourself, could this defense get any worse? Now, it was incredible for fantasy. If you had T. Higgins, if you had Jamar Chase when he was healthy, if you had Joe Mixon, or it was Joe Mixon, I think. No, who was it? It wasn't Joe Mixon. It was, I can see his little fart face. Crap. Anyway, it's, he came out of nowhere and he was kind of like, God, he's right on the tip of my tongue. It's going to bother me. But, I can see two people right now screaming his name while watching this. Chase Brown? Is it Chase Brown? Whatever. Great fantasy options. Joe Burrow, I mean, putting up a lot of numbers. They're just missing the playoffs, and it's in a division with Lamar Jackson. It's in the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. It's just too and being in the AFC itself with Josh Allen and all those and Patrick Mahomes and all those other guys, it's really hard to win a division, let alone make the playoffs when you have a defense letting up quite literally 40 points a game. So my front office opinion would be to handle your contracts right now. And they're just not. So Shemar Stewart, he's came out with a couple of press conferences here. They're questioning, do you plan on playing? And he's saying no, not until this contract is finalized and whatnot. And what's wild to me about it is that Shemar Stewart, as much as it kind of pains me because I hate sitting out for contracts, but when you're owed some money, I think, especially going into the league, you're jumping from just NIL to you're no longer name, image, and likeness. You're now a contracted NFL football player as a professional. It's one of those things that you got to figure out now. And he's not asking for anything crazy. He's quite literally asking for the same thing they gave to former NFL first-round draft picks on the Bengals. And the Bengals are just kind of holding out and refusing to do so. Now, this might be a front office like business process that is just going to take until July, which is my prediction. I predict that Shemar Stewart, all this crap is going to get figured out in July. That's the good news if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan. They're not going to let this guy pass. They drafted him based on freakish athletic talent. Now, granted, over the years at Texas A&M, he only accumulated like 4.5 stats. I know he battled some injuries, but he had an outstanding combine. This is a guy, again, you drafted him in the first, so you're expecting him to play as a first-round talent. So it'll get done. Here's where I'm confused is when you have a rookie, and I'll compare this to Ben Johnson talking about Luther Burden III, their new wide receiver from Missouri, the rookie, is you're missing valuable time, reps with the first team, reps with the second team, reps in live practice situations, reps against professional offensive tackles. Development. You're missing those valuable snaps over something that you can't really control. You can do your best to control it by sitting out and whatnot, but you can't really control it. And just like Ben Johnson said about Luther Burden, he's missing valuable time. He's missing the chemistry to create from the quarterback room, from the coaches, from his teammates. Due to an injury, and I don't know what exactly the injury could be, but it's just like the reality of the situation is you're missing the opportunity to prove yourself so that you can get valuable snaps in the preseason. And that way you're not starting in week 2 or 3 with progression. You're starting in OTAs. You're starting in training camp, then in preseason, and all that training, strength, conditioning, and chemistry gets built up to where you're NFL ready come week 1. Well, they're missing out on that with Shemar Stewart because of this silly contract negotiation. So my shadow the script take is get it done. Get Trey Hendrickson done. Get Trey Hendrickson done. Get Shemar Stewart done, and get your defense in line, because it was a horrible, horrible unit last year in 2024. And if you want Joe Burrow to be, and of course we'll get into it later, you want him to be into that top 5 conversation. You want him to put up those numbers and game manage, and so he's not throwing 60 times a game and he doesn't blow his elbow into smithereens. Then you need to figure out the defense. You got to figure out a way to stop the opposing offense. Duh. But it just seems like it would have been a priority, where it's like, rent is due, by the way. I should probably pay it before the 3rd, and you waited until the 6th, even though you had the funds, and you're just getting penalized for it. That's what I compare it to. So with Shemar Stewart, get it done. Just flat out. This is a bunch of nonsense, and yes, it will get figured out in July, but like I said, you're going to be penalized for it in the long run because he's not getting the valuable reps necessary. And when you draft a guy on freakish talent, there's development traits there and technical applications that you have to account for when you're drafting a rookie. You want him to get in there with the coaches, and I know he's sitting in the team meetings. I know he's studying the playbook, and I know he's training when he gets the time, but he's missing the NFL reps right now. So it just seems like a mishandling of a scenario from the Cincinnati Bengals organization that I find to be dumbfounded. I'm dumbfounded by it. So, and in bigger news, I found this funny. I saw this post on Facebook, and I'm really never on Facebook. I really just go on there to double check and see if, my stories are posting correctly. And then I just kind of, if I scroll, I scroll. Well, on this one, I happened to scroll, and somebody was like, is anyone paying attention to the Middle East right now? And I'm like, what? Like, what is... Maybe it's a psyop. The LA riots are a psyop. There's something going on in the Middle East right now that you're not paying attention to. And of course, I do keep up with this sort of thing, but this is not what this show is about. I found this to be, you be the judge. This is hilarious. So, I go into Grok and ChatGPT, I'm just like, hey, tell me what's going on in the Middle East this week. And, it lists out a bunch of different things, and, oil price and Israeli military actions and whatnot. Get this. Gaza aid ship incident. Israeli forces intercepted a Gaza-bound aid ship detaining activists, including Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg has been detained by Israeli forces. And I don't know if she still is, but the ship, part of the Freedom Flotilla coalition, aimed to deliver aid to Gaza amid an 11-week Israeli blockade, exacerbating the hunger crisis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I quit reading after that because if you think you know what's going on over there in the Middle East, I guarantee you do not. It is all what they want you to see. It is all to paint a picture, to create a narrative for either the right or the left side of the issue, obviously. So I've never taken a position on what the fuck is going on over there, and I really could care less, to be honest with you. And so I'm sitting here going, what we got to ask ourselves the right questions, right? We got to ask ourselves, what is an autistic climate change activist doing on an aid ship to Israel? Why? Detaining someone like that, that's got to be some international law that that's prohibited there. And I read it and I started, I died laughing. I was like, what? She's over there going, what's the climate look like? Is there any radiation? Is there, what's going on over here? Are there actually bombs dropping over here? And this aid ship that's producing carbon monoxide and destroying the environment. We're actually in an electric ship. It's a Tesla aid ship. And the autistic climate change activist is on her way there to help. Don't worry, Gaza. Greta Thunberg's on her way. And I was like, is this what this person is referring to as what's going on in the Middle East? Because if so, we need to be paying attention to it, and we need to be asking ourselves the right question. And so that I thought was diabolically hilarious. I don't care what side of the aisle you on. What in the world is she doing over there? It's like so I found that to be interesting. I really did. And, of course, I'm not going to go too far into that anymore. But I thought I should share because you should know. If you care about what's going on over there, you should know Greta Thunberg's over there helping. In other news, Stephon Diggs has been handing out cocaine to hookers on boats and things like that. So he met with the media this past week and said, for the first time since the boat video surfaced, and they asked him what was in the bag, similar to the Seven movie with Brad Pitt. What's in the box? And Stephon Diggs is sitting there going, well, obviously it's a conversation that's happening internal. I can't have too much conversation about it. Well, it's almost like you shouldn't be doing that. As a 32-year-old vet on the New England Patriots, as a veteran, we call it veteran leadership, right? And it's like, we all know boat incidents with wide receivers don't necessarily end well for careers. Seeing as that I don't know, Odell Beckham Jr., the boat incident, the famous boat picture where they're all together and they just, all their careers were just obliterated after that. The famous boat picture with the Dallas Cowboys, I think it was Tony Romo and some friends went out to vacation in the early 2010s-ish, right before the playoffs or something like that, and then they get boat race in the playoffs right after that. It's like, okay, we shouldn't have professional athletes on boats and when you're supposed to be training and whatnot. We should probably be focused and dial in on the team. So he came back in. I believe Cardi B was twerking all over Stephon Diggs, which if you ask me if I'm in a position like that, don't record me, obviously. But also I would not be in that situation because why would Cardi B be twerking on me? I don't. That's a question for another time. And Stephon Diggs obviously isn't hiding anything and seems to have be betraying or portraying some type of narrative that it's like that he's made it. I don't know, but dude, you're coming off an ACL tear with the Houston Texans where you were supposed to be a pivotal force on the Houston Texans organization and within the wide receiver core over there, and instantly now you're with a rookie quarterback who probably needs your help in training camp in Drake May, but we're just going to be passing out fentanyl, cocaine, and Fluka over there to the OnlyFans baddies from Miami. Now, I get it. GTA 6 is coming out, and we may need to get into the sauce and whatnot. But let's just blow our nose with Kleenexes and not sniff our nose with 8 balls of cocaine. Let's just think about that for a second. Yeah, God. Okay, yeah. In other news, Ryan Clark is still crying. But look, I mean, this is a dead period for a lot of sports. But like I mentioned before, there are NFL quarterback rankings that are coming out, and I want to go through what I feel, and in my opinion, is the best way to categorize quarterbacks. Because I'll tell you this, I really do not like judging quarterbacks based on potential. Because a lot of times the sophomore season comes up and all of a sudden there's a big slump because the NFL figures you out, and it takes 3-ish years to kind of solidify a quarterback unless they're just flat out unstoppable for those 3 years. But we saw it with Dak Prescott. That first year, 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The following year, some injuries happened, some suspensions happened, and you see this not massive decline, but a noticeable decline. Same thing with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, broke that rookie interception record and had a phenomenal rookie season. And then that sophomore season, it was very difficult to watch C.J. Stroud, and you're wondering what's going on. So they fire the offensive coordinator. And you're wondering who's the problem over there. I think it's too early to tell, but there are some serious questions with C.J. Stroud after year 2, especially with the wide receiver core and the weapons that he had on that football team, and knowing how unbelievably weak that division is. I mean, the Jaguars every year we can probably just count them now, but with Trevor Lawrence, the prodigal son, it just hasn't shaped up to be anything special. And now they got a new head coach in there. It's one of those quarterbacks that are placed in a scenario where you're just flipping through head coaches and coordinators every single year until you figure something out. And most of the time, it doesn't get figured out for quite some time. I mean, look at Sam Darnold. It does take the right fit. It does take the right personnel. So you got to keep those sorts of things into account. And then you look at a guy like Bo Nix. We're like, man, he had a great first season as a quarterback with the Denver Broncos. Now he's going to get some more weapons, kind of revamp the running back room, get that defense stronger than it was from last year. We could be looking up here. Jaden Daniels looked absolutely phenomenal his rookie year, but can he keep it up in a season 2? I still think it's too early to tell. So you put him in this category that I would call the future. So I've got 4 tiers of quarterback rankings. Now, let's bring up the list. Let's just bring up the list here, fellas. And go through it one by one. So, here is my STS Network top NFL quarterbacks tiered in 4 different categories. And obviously there's a little bit of comedy in here. But if you're up to the times, who is who and whatnot. But I've got them categorized in 4 different tiers. And I'm going to start with the Demi-Gods and work my way all the way down to the Disciples and the Cleveland Browns. But what the Demi-Gods are. Now, look, these are not perfect by any means, but I think it's our generation's greatest talent of quarterbacks today. And I've only got 2 in this category, and that's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And the reason I have them labeled as Demi-Gods and whatnot, and I think it's a pretty fun name, is they've just cemented themselves as in playoff performances and Super Bowl appearances with different types of teams with less wide receiver and running back arsenals than the rest of the NFL, but they still continue to produce these MVP seasons, is Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And granted, these guys meet 3 times in the playoffs and whatnot, and I know Josh Allen has lost every single time, but at the same time, his team has done, and Josh Allen has done essentially enough to overcome that. It just hasn't gone their way. And I talked about it in a previous episode where I just believe that Josh Allen is in the wrong generation. But if Mahomes wasn't there, or whatever you want to call this Mahomes magic wasn't there, we'd be looking at Josh Allen's Super Bowl appearances tenfold. Josh Allen, y'all know, if you watch this show, you know how big of a fan I am of Josh Allen, but I think these are your quarterbacks 1 and 2. Mahomes being number 1, Josh Allen being number 2. And I think their stats back it up. I think their production backs it up. I think their shuffling of teams back it up. And granted, these teams are ones where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've got Sean McDermott still as the head coach. We've shuffled some coordinators around, but we've kept the foundation where it's at with the head coach. And, of course, with Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo and whatnot, like that chemistry over there on the Chiefs is you don't change it. Not at all. And so I think Mahomes is the pinnacle of quarterback play, elite arm talent, mobility and clutch performances, leading the Chiefs to multiple championships. Obviously, I did think in 2024 that Mahomes took a step back, but you also got to consider their situation. And this is a big one with quarterback rankings, is their situation. You cannot judge a quarterback off just one thing. You have to take in everything into account, because there are a lot of factors that play into how a quarterback produces per season, whether that be their wide receiver core, whether that be their coordinator, whether that be their front office, their defense. And you got to take all those things into account. But I think Allen and Mahomes have those 2 pivotal pieces on a consistent enough basis to where the majority of those factors are covered and they check the boxes, and they can be in that 1 and 2 category. Number 3 on the list is my Maestros. Maestros are your special talents. And I think Lamar is solidified himself as number 3. I mean, during the regular season, that dude is an absolute MVP merchant, putting up very, very impressive seasons. I do still think he had a fluke MVP season to where it was robbed. I mean, if you're looking at regular season stats, I don't think, what he did was enough to win an MVP. I thought it was built upon and foundationally team success. But when you look at in comparison, and I know I am a Dak Prescott truther, but Dak Prescott had an unbelievable season. And so did some other quarterbacks. And to be honest, that felt like a position player award winning season where I think it was Christian McCaffrey that had an incredible season in 2023. But there were some categorized players in there that could have won the MVP if you didn't want to give it to a quarterback. But Lamar ended up winning that year. Then the following year in 2024, Lamar had a better season than he did in 2023, where I thought, he was deserving an MVP. But since you gave it to him last year, you really can't follow up and give it to him this year. So it kind of evened out, and Josh Allen got the MVP. And Josh Allen had absolutely an argument to win that MVP award. But I've got Lamar Jackson at 3, and there are some heavy concerns about his playoff performances in here. But in terms of talent, and in terms of situation, in terms of head coach and front office and weapon arsenal and things like that, you put Derrick Henry in that conversation of offensive production. It really elevated Lamar Jackson's game to where they have 2 elite running forces to penetrate the defense. And I do believe that Lamar Jackson's throwing ability is highly underrated. But he's unparalleled in rushing. His passing, like I said, has improved and has become extremely dynamic. And, in 2024, you're looking at over close to 4,000 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, with close to 1,000 yards rushing. He's a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2019 an unanimous MVP season, and of course a MVP in 2023 as well. Joe Burrow is in here as well as a maestro. And he has not made the playoffs, I believe, in the last 3 seasons. He's battled some injuries. His receivers have battled some injuries, and it's Cincinnati, Ohio. So, but when you look at Joe Burrow, of course, he's got the notable Burrowhead Stadium agenda, and I understand all that. But Burrow he's on the cusp of moving back in this tier, but I do believe, based upon the credentials I've seen from Burrow's career, that he has the talent and the tenacity and that it factor, that X factor, whatever you want to call it, that puts him in this special talented categorization at number 4. And of course, bringing the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl itself is hard enough to do, and to beat Mahomes to go do it is even more special. Now, can he do it again? I don't believe so, and neither does the analyst. We think that he's probably never going to get back, at least with the Bengals. It's just, you got to have almost a miracle with a poverty franchise, quite frankly, like the Cincinnati Bengals. But in terms of talent, Burrow's in there at number 4. Now, I put the future in here in between the next few rankings because I left number 5 blank. And the reason I left number 5 blank is because I still think there needs to be a proven season from either one of these future candidates or a disciple. And I'll get into what the disciples are in just a second. But with the future talent, I mean, you look at Jaden Daniels. He absolutely has the talent from what we've seen to possibly become in that 5 to 8 rank range, to where if he continues to do what he does with the Commanders and Dan Quinn ends up working out long term, then you're looking at a top 5, top 7 quarterback in the NFL, no questions asked, a lot like Lamar Jackson is. But there's still some questions up in the air because he's only played 1 season. CJ Stroud, like I mentioned earlier, phenomenal rookie season. And you're looking at one of the greatest rookie seasons in comparison to Dak Prescott that the NFL has seen in recent memory. But that sophomore season was highly concerning, and they're going to switch some things around with the offensive coordinator. We'll see if that will help things out. But you look at the potential and the ceiling of CJ Stroud, and I'm not confident, but I'm going to throw him in there because I do think he has the potential to be a solidified top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And top 10 quarterbacks, like I said, factor in a bunch of different things. You know, you look at his receiving core with Nico Collins and Mechie and all these different cats. And I know they had Stephon Diggs last year, and I believe Christian Kirk is joining the Texans this year. They've got some dogs, and now with Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, and Dameon Pierce, and maybe a little bit of a revamped offensive line, and D'Amico Ryans, and a pretty decent defense, they're set up to do some damage in a very weak division where you're competing against Cam Ward, a rookie, and Will Levis with the Tennessee Titans. They're probably going to be nothing special. The Jacksonville Jaguars, most likely going to be nothing special. And the Indianapolis Colts, who are dealing with Anthony Richardson, who has most likely a long-term shoulder injury condition, which is going to affect his already abysmal throwing ability. And you might pair that in with Daniel Jones. So there's just so many questions with these other teams that haven't been worth a crap in a long time. And the Texans just have this wide open division to where they should run away with it every year. But it just oddly enough, they seem to be in these contentions for tiebreakers towards the end of the season where they shouldn't be in those situations. But I get it. Being in the AFC, you got a lot of quarterback talent loaded up. And then Bo Nix. Bo Nix, dude, I understand people always josh about his age. They're always going on, well, he should be good because, you know, he came into the league at 29 years old, whatever he is. And, you know, I know he's mid-20s. And, dude, regardless of the fact, he had the most collegiate snaps coming out of college in his draft class, and he proved that it is valuable for an NFL team to draft based upon that. It's a lot like how Tyler Show, the rookie from Louisville, was drafted so early with the New Orleans Saints. Now, do I think Tyler Show is going to be any good? Probably not. He's kind of a wild card athlete, in my opinion, to where he kind of does some silly things in the field that people make fun of him for. But you just never know because there's always something with a quarterback coming into the NFL. But Bo Nix, great coordinator, phenomenal defense, starting to add some pieces to the offense. I'm excited for what Bo Nix can do in the NFL. And he's got this dual threat factor to him. But I think those three quarterbacks in specific had the potential to be top 10 quarterbacks, top 12 quarterbacks, some of them maybe even in the top 5. But I'm leaving that 5 spot open because I really don't think the rest of these guys have done enough to prove talent-wise, resume-wise, and just kind of like the adversity side of things where if things go bad, we still see the same amount of production. And you can argue against it. Obviously, it's a list based on opinion and how I think you should rank quarterbacks. But number 6, I think, is Justin Herbert. I think talent-wise, and he's got possibly the most live arm for a starting quarterback in the NFL. And you look at a guy that has flipped coordinators most of his career and flipped coaches most of his career and finally landed on a Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, taking over the head coaching reins with the Los Angeles Chargers. It just did wonders for him last year, even with a downgraded wide receiver core. He looks so much more efficient. The run game kind of married him with the pass game. He's not throwing 50 times a game. He's not taking rib shots anymore. And I think that's important. And so I look at his situation primarily in his career, and I'm judging based off of that as well as what we've seen from his talent. So I think he's got what it takes to be a top 5 quarterback, but it's the Chargers. It's a lot like a Phillip Rivers scenario to where it's like, yeah, when he retires, we're going to be talking about him a lot, but did he win a Super Bowl? Probably not, but he got close a couple times. And the Chargers have just never been able to come over that hump. The number 7 quarterback, and I really debated this. And y'all know this. If y'all watch my show, y'all know that I'm just not very high on Jalen Hurts, but I have him at number 7. And it's strictly because, I mean, what people forget about Jalen Hurts is the amount of recycling they've done from the defensive and offensive coordinating standpoint that have went on to different jobs and become NFL head coaches. And having that all cycled in to his success and how he continues to win with the team that he has. And granted, it's one of the greatest rostered teams in the NFL, if not the greatest, especially after the addition of Saquon Barkley. And you've got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert, and one of the best top 5 offensive lines consistently in the NFL. And with essentially the NFL Georgia Bulldogs and the Ku Klux Klamp with Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship on defense, like, dude, you almost have no excuses to lose. And thankfully, Jalen Hurts does not lose. He is a winning quarterback. He has a winning formula. And yes, I think there are limitations to his talent as a quarterback himself, but it's just kind of undeniable. And do I think if Jalen Hurts was placed in the AFC that things would be the same as they are for him in the NFC? Absolutely not. I do think he would be. I don't even think he would have appeared in a Super Bowl if he played in the AFC, but he's in that category in the NFC. I don't think he would have that talent or that success in the AFC. I don't know if I said that right, but when you plug him into the NFC, it just seems like you take away the tush-push touchdowns, you take away the nonsense, and you're looking at a good quarterback, a Brock Purdy systemized quarterback that isn't going to take you above and beyond, but he's going to get you the formula to win, and he'll get you where you need to go as a franchise. So, and people have such a horrible time contemplating that, and I really don't understand why, because I don't feel like that's hate. I feel like that's a realistic take on Jalen Hurts. Number 8 is Matthew Stafford. I debated this one as well. Matthew Stafford, when he gets his white boys cooking on offense with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I know Cooper Kupp has gone to Seattle now, but when he's in that zone, he quite possibly is, I wouldn't say the greatest arm talent, but one of the most firm and cool arm talents you'll watch in the NFL in a long time. The no-look passes over the middle of the field. And throwing over the middle of the field is hard enough as it is. And I love judging quarterbacks based on how they can hit the middle of the football field. But with Matthew Stafford, he does it at it's probably the most elite level in the NFL. And that's what I love most about him. But he is getting old, and I think that's a worry for me. And some people have him much higher than I do, and I disagree with that. I just the mobility factor, the injury when things kind of doesn't go his way. I think he gets into trouble with hanging on to the football too long. I don't think the situation that he's in with the offensive line, I don't think they protect him well enough. But he does have a phenomenal head coach in Sean McVay. And that defense is a little bit shaky, which might be the reason why they don't win as much games, as well as the division that they're in itself. That seems to be pretty competitive year in and year out. All right, number 9 is Dak Prescott. And I'm going to get a ton of hate for this one, per usual, because he's in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. But when Dak Prescott gets the pieces necessary, such as, I don't know, a wide receiver 2 that is worth a crap, he puts up phenomenal regular season numbers. And he wins at least 11 games a year with this. I mean, you look back at the 2019 season, I believe, with before the addition of Amari Cooper, he went in there with Michael Gallup and someone else. It was like Michael Gallup and I can't even remember, which is that's a strange spot for me to be in because I typically remember these things. But they went 3, they were like 3-5 or something like that. And they traded for Amari Cooper, obviously a number 1. And they finished the season 10-6 and won a playoff game. So you went, what is that? 8-1 after the trade, or 8-2 if you're counting the Los Angeles Rams loss in the divisional round, which was a close game. After the addition of I don't know, another piece of the puzzle. So, and then you go into 2020, snapped his ankle. 2021, great season. 2022 had those tip picks and whatnot. 2023, phenomenal season once again. When you get this guy the pieces to the puzzle, a decent run game, a decent coordinator, or I should say a good run game, a good coordinator, an offensive line that is not cycling injuries in and out, and a formidable defense, he's going to win you quite possibly and most likely the division. And Dak Prescott, he gets so much unnecessary hate as a talent in the NFL. What he does pre-snap, I think, is uncomparable to what I see other quarterbacks do pre-snap. And I get it. There's still signal callers out there that are very efficient at what they do. But other than Aaron Rodgers, what quarterbacks are you watching consistently get, semi-consistently get defenders to jump off sides? Now they're going to tweak a little bit with his pre-snap cadence with the here we go. But if Dak Prescott is healthy, and I know that's an ask, and he gets, like I said, going to this year with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson and a running back committee room and an upgraded offensive line with Clayton Adams as the OC and Eberflus as the DC and some young guns and kind of a deep-pocketed edge linebacker and cornerback room and what it's shaping up to be. In Dallas, I think this Dallas team is going to shock a lot of people, and I think Dak Prescott, once again, is going to have an efficient season if he remains healthy. And now that he's got some pressure on his behind with Joe Milton, who's having a great camp, I think you're going to see a more elevated and amplified Dak Prescott wanting to do more for his team. So, but the hate Dak Prescott gets is just stupid. I understand the playoff implication, but we don't hate Lamar Jackson the same way that we hate Dak when the same thing happens to Lamar in the playoffs and to Lamar's team. And number 10, Baker Mayfield. My gosh, Baker Mayfield has revived his career, and I know that everyone is saying the same thing, but when Baker Mayfield gets the pieces to the puzzles, I mean, he's throwing for almost 5,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns, and around 10 interceptions, which is all you can ask for a franchise quarterback. And, I know he got his money. He's getting, I think they re-signed Chris Godwin Jr., Mike Evans is still doing his thing, 1,000 yards receiving and whatnot. Bucky Irving, shout out Bucky Irving for giving me a fantasy football championship. But man, Baker Mayfield resurgence in Tampa I think it shows grit. I think it shows his playmaking ability. I think it shows a leader that a team can get behind, and he just provides this white boy spark that is just phenomenal to watch. And people know what I'm talking about when you see him on a screen, flexing first down and making these gritty physical plays. You stand up from your seat, and he's exciting to watch. And I'm happy that he has overcome this narrative that he was a bust, and he's clearly not. And at number 11, Jared Goff. Now, I've been a pro Jared Goff guy for a long time because of I think primarily it's his ability to zip it over the middle of the field and long distances. I think he has a very live arm, and we've seen, of course, with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell and the Lions, that with Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Laporta, and my boy Brock Wright, in a phenomenal offensive line, he's going to produce. He's going to produce at an elite level. He's going to produce at an all-pro level, and these are the types of things you look at for a franchise quarterback to where it's like, yeah, well, he's going to be interchangeable depending on a situation between ranks 7 and 12, but right outside the top 10 and has the ability to easily be inside the top 10 is Jared Goff. Number 12, Jordan Love. Jordan Love has a bit of a turnover issue, granted, but he's also dealing with about 7 wide receiver 3 talents on his team. I mean, no one seems to be wanting to take the number 1 role over there. I mean, you go into the season, it's like Romeo Doubs, and then he doesn't show up for practice, so they bench him. Then you got Christian Watson. This is the best talent we've seen since Megatron out of the combine, and he can't play more than 3 games because his hamstring's been screwed up for 3 years. Jaden Reed gets 7 receptions in the first quarter and doesn't touch the ball the rest of the game. And you just kind of go down the list, and you're like, man, who's going to take over this number one receiver role? Could it be Matthew Golden this year? I don't know, but that's kind of where I have him in that category where it's like, well, do we really know if he has the help necessary to become one of the most talented and premier quarterbacks in the league? Because we see his arm talent, we see his mobility, we see those different tangibles add up on the football field. And yes, he's battled some injuries, but he's got the coach, he's got the organization. I think he needs the wide receiver talent to produce a really fun and live offense. Then you got the Cleveland Browns. So that essentially that's my top 12. And to talk about 1 second here with the disciples. I forgot to explain what it means. So the disciples in the Bible were all broken. They were tax collectors. They were murderers. They were thieves. They were X, Y, and Z. They were broken. And Jesus chose them to be his disciples and to spread the gospel and do all these sort of things. But what Jesus did as well throughout this whole process as eyewitness testimonies is he gave them the tools to be the best version of themselves. And so I think that's why I categorize quarterbacks 7 through 12 in this disciple category, because when they're given the tools to succeed, they are oftentimes, and a lot of these franchises are interchangeable in this with the different types of rosters, the different recycling of head coaches and coordinators and front offices and things like that. They've all got their own issues. But when they get the tools provided by the front office, they produce. And that's why this 7 through 12 category is it's always shuffling, and it's just wrong to put them like this solidified number 6 and number 8 and whatnot, because Dak Prescott has the capability to be a top 7 quarterback in the league. We've seen it before. Baker Mayfield is playing he debatably could be higher than what I put him at. Jordan Love has the potential with the right tools to be a top 7 quarterback. Herbert has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback. And you just kind of go in that list, and Stroud's probably somewhere in there. But all these cats, when you're given the right tools, they become the disciples of the NFL, to where it's like, with the right leadership, with the right foundation, with the right tools, you can produce at a franchise all-pro, possibly MVP level. And then you got the Cleveland Browns. I wanted to throw these guys in there because I think there's a brilliant ranking system happening here. Obviously, I think at number 1, and of course, this is all debatable, but you got Deshaun Watson. He's the most proven NFL quarterback in there. He's got a couple cases on him right now and a couple injuries back-to-back on him right now, which is sucks to suck, but, really, do I care or not? Not really, but putting him at number 1, sure, because the rest of these folks are, let's just say, deadbeats, in my opinion. I mean, deadbeats and has-beens. Number 2, Shedeur. Apparently, he's looked pretty good in camp, but number 2, we've got Shedeur Sanders, bust down my AP, perfect mother effing timing, right? And then number 3, Kenny Pickett, got a little bit of NFL experience, played some subpar football for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 4, we got the 45-year-old Joe Flacco. He's been criticizing people about the TikTok dances going on at practice. I don't blame him. The old boss had enough. Number 5, it is Twilight's Wolf, whatever his name, Taylor Hutt. What is his freaking name? But the handsome cat from Twilight, the tan guy who played Shark Boy. Dylan Gabriel is there at number 5. I don't think I've seen some camp videos of him, and obviously it's too early to tell, but it just doesn't look like he has. It doesn't look like he has the size and the tangibles to make it in the NFL. I think he's the worst on the roster. And then at number 6, at the bottom of the barrel for the Cleveland Browns, is myself. Me being a state championship appearing quarterback and throwing 2 picks, but also assembling 2 picks on defense. I think there's some upside there long term. And if somebody were to be able to invest in me at the JUCO level, I think I could have done some damage and possibly went the Josh Allen route, but we would have never known due to I got a labrum tear and whatnot. So, but yeah, that's the list right there, and all the Cleveland Browns quarterbacks, including myself. So yeah, you got your Demi-Gods, your Maestros, the future potential prospects, the disciples, and then Cleveland Browns, all right there, ready to go in hot into the 2025 NFL season. And that's a mouthful, But, like I say, ranking NFL quarterbacks is always a difficult thing when you look at it, especially for a guy like Chris Sims who goes in there and puts Patrick Mahomes number 4. Like, what the hell are you talking about? What are we doing here? And people have their own opinions on it, and then everybody freaks out at the lunch table. But I think that's what I have done is the best way to rank the quarterback system. And I am a believer in situation for a quarterback. I think that's one of the biggest factors that people just seem to forget all the time. And when the pieces come alive and they come together, you just see a different quarterback. You see a different type of production. And the most common quarterbacks in that franchise category are between 7 and 12, with, of course, including Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud and guys like that. And, of course, we haven't seen J.J. McCarthy play. I know Geno kind of floats around there. I could care less about a Geno. I know Brock Purdy's probably right outside that 12 category. And he's just one of those system quarterbacks. I'm just not a big believer in a Brock Purdy long term, but they are going to pay him. But yeah, I mean, debate with the wall, right? And your own opinions. I love discourse. I love disagreements and agreements on my takes and whatnot. So feel free to go in there and say whatever you got to say. Lastly, before we wrap things up here, I do want to talk about my top 5 SEC quarterbacks. Now, this is where we get a little bit tricky because I'm going to go off the whim here. And, there's speculation, but I won't go into too much detail here because I don't have it all in front of me, but I just kind of wanted to throw it out there. I think your number 5 best quarterback in the SEC, when you're looking in terms of the new shape of the SEC, is I think you got to put Marcel Reed there right at 5, based upon that LSU game alone. And I know he was tipping his plays, and obviously that's going to be addressed. I think Mike Elko is a promising coach for Texas A&M. I think they still got some young guys growing up on the offensive side of the ball. There was a lot of back and forth in the transfer portal, adding and losing different players on the receiver side. Le'Veon Moss is a formidable running back prospect coming into this collegiate season. I'm excited to see what he can do. But gaining some size with Marcel Reed and really trying to format some touch, like a 2-ball for Marcel Reed, is going to be huge. I really don't think I think he lacked a lot of touch on the football in his first starting season. But, going down that list, it's just I think his upside is very fun to keep an eye on. Number 4, I got Lenoris Sellers. Lenoris Sellers with South Carolina Gamecocks. I loved what he did, especially on the backside of the season, finishing 9-3, beating Clemson. They had an argument to be in the college football playoffs, without a doubt. And when you look at one of their losses, especially to LSU, in a game that I think they should have won with a really BS college football officiating call on a roughing the passer or whatnot, on an interception for the South Carolina Gamecocks that I believe was taken for a pick 6. I think that game was robbed of them. But when you look at it in terms of what Lenoris Sellers was doing, I'm really, really excited for what he's going to be able to do in 2025. Now, right beneath him, and you could argue with the wall here, but right beneath him, I think Garrett Nussmeier with LSU I saw some really cool things from him last year, and I've just never been a fan of Brian Kelly. I mean, honestly, with how the quarterback terrain is going in the SEC, you never know who's going to pop up as a solidified pro. But I've got Nussmeier right there. I like what he's able to do. I think he can put a lot of touch in the deep ball. I think he can hit the middle of the field. I think he's pretty durable and mobile in the pocket. And then at number 2, I've got Arch Manning at number 2. I think Arch Manning, obviously, there's a huge prove it factor there with the Texas Longhorns that everybody is in high anticipation for. But mark my words, if he doesn't do better than what Quinn Ewers was able to do with the University of Texas, we're going to have some serious laughing discussions about all this Arch Manning hype. Now, I do believe he's done everything the right way. I absolutely believe that. I think sitting is good for his career and progressing as a quarterback and whatnot behind Quinn Ewers and in the Steve Sarkisian system. But it's time to play. It's time to prove it. Let's see what he's made of. But I can't put him at number one. I just adore the upside of DJ Lagway out of Florida. I think he's a Texas kid. I just, the size, the mobility, the arm strength. He was a freshman last year. I think this dude is going to be incredible long term. And it may not show up this year, but in terms of long-term success, I mean, I got to watch a little bit of DJ Lagway versus Ole Miss. DJ Lagway versus, I believe he played a little bit at, versus Texas A&M. But I love what I'm seeing from this guy. The size of DJ Lagway and the live action arm is what sells me. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but that's kind of my top five. Number one, Lenore Sellers. Number two, Arch Manning. Number three, Garrett Nussmeier. Number four, Lenore Sellers. And number five, Marcel Reed. And of course, there's some honorable mentions in there. Could be some Gunnar Stockton from Georgia, or I think the quarterback from Oklahoma could possibly come in there. I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for the college football season, though. All right, yeah, I think this was I think we got enough done in this episode. If you guys are not already subscribed to the YouTube, you can find us at Shatter the Script. You'll see the yellow banner on there. Thank you guys for over 50 subscribers. Thank you guys for tuning into the guest interviews. I hope you tuned into this episode and you enjoyed it. I'm excited for what the rest of season 3 has to offer. But yeah, if you haven't already, check out those previous episodes. Hit a subscribe button. You'll get notified when our released episodes come out, and that way you can pay attention and be able to listen and watch at whenever you choose. And then on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, yeah, we do provide video on Spotify. You can also listen. So you can just search Shatter the Script on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcasts all simultaneously. And then you can check out our new website, www.shatterthescript.com. It's just kind of a place, all in one place where you can find our link tree. You can find our latest episodes up from YouTube. You can find some of our articles and whatnot. And we're on X, Instagram, and TikTok with the tag STS Pod. Appreciate it, y'all. Hopefully I shattered the script here on quarterback rankings for collegiate and NFL, as well as Shemar Stewart and, oddly enough, Israel and Greta Thunberg. But we will see y'all next episode for possibly a Stats and Scars appearance covering the Dallas Cowboys OTAs. And you guys have a good rest of your weekend.